I identify as an African. What did Malcolm X say? He said, if a kitten has babies in the oven, I don't make them biscuits. You know, it's talking about African people in the U.S. Just because we're born here doesn't make us Americans. And we see that, you know, like materially, like our conditions and how we treat it, how, you know, throughout history, there never has really been a place of equality for African people. It wasn't like a collective decision for us to be set, you know, to us to be, okay, now we're Americans. That never happened. So I identify with Africa personally, you know, through my organization's work and different things like that. So I may live here, I may function here, but I'm an African.
We all have fights with what we think our identity is, you know, the different parts, and those fights are ones in which fighting and having to make those confrontations is what gives you the language to speak about the world. And I was like, whoa, that was prolific, my dude. Did you just tell me you know what I'm saying? I should go through that struggle, I should go through that pain and anguish, you know, a little black boy who's trying to find out what it means to be African in America. I should go through that. And the more and more I struggle with it, the more and more I find a language that gives me peace. Because he was like, you know, struggling with it for external reasons, like other people and just to speak to them, don't mean nothing to you at the end of the day. And it will always have you searching and feeling like you can actually reach out to like a figure named Africa and be like, give me some Africanness, please. Right? Like, it's not happening. And so when he, you know, broke it down to me like that, it was like, all right.
I personally do identify as African, but I think it took me a long time to get there. It was a process of understanding what the term meant, what the whole idea of Pan-Africanism, diaspora really meant. It took for me to begin the question of Black African American when I graduated from high school and I first ended up on the campus at Howard University. Those are the kind of debates that are always around the freshman class. You know, you have some people who grew up in a really conscious household, I'm African, Black power, and then you're coming in contact with them as somebody who says, no, I'm not Black, I'm African American. And being able to negotiate why people associate those terms was a part of my process. But I really didn't get into the claiming of African until I went to Egypt. When I visited Kemet, went on an ancient Kemetic tour, I began to understand the parallels, the connections of there's a genealogy of not just intellectual thought, not just practical thought, not just this mythical, esoteric king and queen thought, but there's a genealogy of me being tied to this place. And so once I began to put my foot there, literally land in that space, I began to understand this is me too. And so I could say without reservation or without doubt, I too am African.
Okay, so how do you identify yourself? Do you identify as an African?
Yes.
As a Black man, Black American, African American?
Right. I don't use none of them. I don't use none of those stupid terms like African American. That's a very dumb term if you ask me. Our scholars have always told us that you can't be the slave and the slave master. That just don't make no sense. So for me, I identify as an African. If somebody asks me what I am, what's my lineage, what's my heritage, what is my ethnic background, I'm an African. No questions about that, no hesitation. But quite often I feel myself calling myself a Black man. Which is, to me, is no different than any other title, a Black man, an African man. You know what I mean? To me, it's all one and the same because our skin has been kissed by the sun. Our roots are deeply rooted in the same area, which is the motherland of Africa, obviously.
Well, being that I do come from the United States, I guess I would have to say I do identify myself as an African American, but I do like to make sure I put the extra emphasis on African just because of the fact I want people to know that that is my history, that is my culture, that's my background. I'm African, you know, given that I've been placed in the United States, you know, I was born in the United States, I do have to say, you know, African American, but I like to identify as being African, having African descent and background.
And it's like, through my rendition of my own name, I understand what it means to be in confrontation. You know, of Blackness or Africanness. The whole time I have no choice but to affirm, and anything else would be crazy. And like, what does it mean to have a strong structure like I do? Like my cheekbones to my shoulder blades tell me I'm African. White people don't look like this. That's why they models be all like slinky and think that it's like, yo, y'all look like y'all nose. It's like nothing to be proud about, and malnutritious. Like, not to be anti-European or anything like that, but it's like, yo, aesthetics is important, and I don't think Africans who have to ask themselves, where do I identify, are comfortable in that rendition, right, are comfortable enough to have their own thoughts about the world that are not subject to correction by what it means to be politically correct or white people. So, yeah, fuck that. We shouldn't have them sitting in our imagination, you know, and telling us at every waking moment, hey, so you know, we defined what shit is, and so when you say African, you mean dirty little motherfucker who be scratching his ass, chucking spears and shit, versus when you say African, you mean who can outscore every European on a standardized test. So when we have SAT score people who are getting perfect scores from Africa, how the fuck can you say that now, right? Like, and I think that to affirm it in that kind of context means to say, in some spaces, yeah, I'm black. But in other spaces, I'm African all day long.